Most people moving to Salem, Oregon are coming here for four main reasons. More overall affordability, much more house for your dollar. They're coming here for a slower pace of life than the big city they're coming from, and they're coming here for government jobs. We are the state capital, after all, here in Oregon. Now, my family and I relocated here about 4 years ago, and we came here for the slower pace of life. We were tired of that big city life, and we came here to get more house for our dollar. We had a house in Los Angeles. Now we have a much bigger house here in Salem, Oregon. If you are planning to move here, however, you should come here with a plan. Most people moving to Salem make the same mistake, and that is they jump online and try to find a house before actually having a plan, and that leads to many issues down the road after they made the move here. They either paid too much, they moved to a neighborhood that just doesn't meet their lifestyle, they may have longer commutes, or they may find that they have extra expenses that they weren't intending to have only after they moved here. Salem is not a one-size-fits-all type of city. South Salem has a much different feel than West Salem, and Northeast Salem is completely different than Central Salem. And if you don't have a plan or have things figured out before making the move here, or even just jumping online looking for a home, then you've already made the first mistake. And in this video, we're going to go over a step-by-step plan to help you guide your move here to Salem to make it more smoother, especially if you're buying a home. Because the worst thing you can do is buy a home here, relocate here, and have massive regrets. We want to make sure your first move is the right move. Together, we're going to go over the different lifestyles to expect in the various neighborhoods here in Salem, Oregon. We're going to go over the very real costs and expectations when moving to Salem and buying a home. We're also going to be discussing how to visit and tour Salem when looking to relocate to the city. We're also going to go over a timeline, and at the end, we're going to talk about some of the biggest regrets and mistakes that people can make before moving to Salem. As mentioned, Salem is made up of many different neighborhoods, but for the purpose of this video, we're going to talk about four main regions in Salem. First, we're going to start off in South Salem, then we're going to move west, head over to Central Salem, and then talk about North and Northeast Salem. Now, South Salem is for people that want kind of this nice combination of being close to amenities and yet feeling a little bit away from some of the grind of the city that you would find more in the central portion of Salem. There's some great, well-established neighborhoods in the South Salem area, a lot of it being built kind of mid-century timeline. You can find some new construction. In fact, there's some very large new construction projects going in as far south as you can go in South Salem, in the Verona Heights area. But for the most part, you can expect those mid-century homes, even pockets of homes that were built in the 80s and 90s. You can expect larger homes, some bigger lots here in South Salem. Now with that does come a larger price point. South Salem happens to be one of the most expensive regions in all of Salem. What people really love about the South Salem area is that even though you're a little bit further out from the downtown area, anywhere between 5 minutes to 15 minutes, so it's not that far out, you still feel connected to it because you've got two major streets going north-south that will take you right through all of Salem. That's Commercial Street and Liberty, and both connect South Salem to the downtown area and going north. Commercial also kind of runs down the heart of South Salem, and that's where you're going to find most of your shopping, your supermarkets, professional services, and other types of retail outlets there as well. Now, as you saw that map pop up earlier, you saw that South Salem is a very large region, and it's made up of different type of geography. There is a portion of South Salem that has a lot of rolling hills, so you do have that hillside feel, the hillside properties. Some come with some great views. Now, some people don't necessarily like the hillsides because it does come with a lot of windy streets, a lot of walking up and down, and people are just not fans of that in general. But for those that want that type of lifestyle, they have a great section here in South Salem. There's also a big portion of South Salem made of more of the flat, so you don't have to deal with some of the hillside issues. There's also a lot of great established neighborhood parks in the South Salem area. The Bryant Johnston Park, Nelson Park, which is a really beautiful tucked away park. And you're also connected to Mento Brown, which is in South Salem. It's in the western portion of South Salem, but Mento Brown Park is an amazing park with acres and acres of walking trails, open land. It's a wildlife refuge, off-leash dog park, and trails that run along the Willamette River. As I mentioned, South Salem does have that feel that you're a little bit away from it all, especially in the deeper portions of South Salem. But if you're looking for a neighborhood that you really kind of want to escape the city life, then the next neighborhood we're going to talk about is for you, and that is West Salem. My family and I actually chose West Salem because we were looking really to escape. We wanted a breath of fresh air, really peaceful, really quiet. We wanted an area where people aren't really driving through unless you live in the area or maybe visiting friends. And so West Salem is that type of neighborhood. Now, I should warn you, West Salem is mostly hillside property. Again, that's something that we were looking for. We like that feel. We like that type of lifestyle. A lot of homes come with some amazing views. And even if your home doesn't come with views, just driving through the neighborhoods, you have some awesome views of the Cascade Mountains and the snow caps along those mountains as well. It's an area where you're going to see wild turkeys, you're going to see deer crossing the road, hear the frogs and the crickets chirp at night. It's really peaceful and super quiet in this portion of Salem. Now, the downside is that you are a bit away from your big box shopping. It takes me about 25 minutes to get to Target or any type of big box shopping, the Willamette Town Center, and more. Now, that's not to say that you have to drive 25 minutes. In fact, West Salem is self-sufficient. In West Salem, you have all the amenities that you need. Supermarkets, some casual food, professional services, and some other retail outlets. We're just a little bit more limited, so you will find yourself crossing the bridge. And the bridge is a big deal for a lot of people. Again, not for my family and I. West Salem is on the west side of the Willamette River. It is the only portion of Salem where you have to cross the river, and you have to cross a bridge. With no traffic, the bridge takes like less than a minute to cross. It's a small bridge. However, sometimes traffic can back up because people are trying to get in and out of West Salem to and from work, and some people just don't want to deal with it. Wallace Road, Edgewater, they get backed up. And for me, it's not a huge deal. I came from a large city. I'm used to a lot of traffic. And when there is traffic, it's really only adding maybe like 7 minutes to your commute. And there's workarounds as well. But even with that bridge issue, we love the neighborhoods here. Again, we love that peace and quiet. We love that we're just adjacent to farmland and at the heart of the Willamette wine country. So if you love wineries or just driving through wine country, we are right next to it, and you're like 5 minutes away from the closest winery. There is a lot of newer homes that were built here in the West Salem area. A lot of homes built in that 2000, 2013, and 2020 range, and there's more being built right now. So if you're looking for new construction or newer homes, West Salem is going to be a neighborhood that you're going to want to explore. Now, West Salem is going to be probably the second most expensive region of all of Salem, so be prepared for a little bit of a higher price point. Now we're going to talk about the central portion of Salem, which includes the downtown area. Now, I'll start off by saying there's not a lot of housing in the downtown area. They are working on that. There is going to be some mixed-use buildings that are coming up that will have apartment buildings. There are more places to rent in the downtown area than there are condos, but even with that said, the housing is very limited when you're talking directly in downtown. So we're going to be talking about areas that are just adjacent south and north of the downtown area. So if you're moving to Salem and you're looking to be really part of that vibe of Salem, the downtown area, which is charming, it's quaint, it's about 7 square miles. I'd say half of which are made up of the Capitol and some government buildings, and the other half is made up of some really cool restaurants, retail, and entertainment, some great coffee places, a few bars, and more. So if you really want that vibe where you can walk to it, easy bike ride, or just a very short commute, then these neighborhoods are going to be for you. We're first going to start off in the southern portion of the central area, and that is the Bushes Pasture Park neighborhood, which is just a couple of blocks south of the downtown area. Now, this is like an historic area, which is awesome. They've got some great bungalows, some craftsman-style homes, Victorian-style homes, and at the heart of this neighborhood is Bushes Pasture Park, which is acres of open space with walking trails. They've got sports fields. They have a massive art festival here every single summer. There is a historic home that you can tour, and it's just a really cool vibe. A big open field, rose garden, gazebo. It's a really special place right in the heart of this neighborhood. Now, a lot of these homes are older. We're talking about 100 years or older, so some of them can come with those types of issues. We're going to talk about that a little bit later in this video. But a lot of these homes have also been updated over the years, so they have that old world charm on the outside, and inside they're a little bit more contemporary or modern. Another portion of the central area is the Fairmount Hills area. This is actually the OG area. This is where a lot of people who established Salem, this is where they live. These homes tend to be a little bit bigger, again, They are older, they've got a really cool vibe to it, and you feel a little bit more tucked away. It's a little bit more hillside property, but it's also part of the central portion of Salem, putting you really close to the downtown area. So if you love that historic charm, the older homes, the vintage homes, and still being super close to all your great coffee spots, restaurants, and amenities in the downtown area, then this neighborhood is going to be great. Now, as far as price point goes, it is going to be the more expensive neighborhoods in central Salem. Now, if you're looking for a similar style home, slightly different vibe, but close to the downtown area, then you're going to go north into the Grant and Highland areas, where these are also some historic homes. They just tend to be a little bit smaller. Some of them need to be rehabbed. There's more homes in the area that need to be rehabbed. They haven't yet been remodeled, but it comes with a lower price point. So this is a neighborhood, again, where you can be just blocks away from the heart of the downtown area, the awesome Saturday market that's going on in the downtown area. Maybe you're working in government at the Capitol building or some of the other government buildings. This puts you really close to that area as well. And again, at a much lower price point with the cool old world charm that those bungalows and those vintage homes come with. The downside to this area is that it feels a lot more congested than Bush's Pasture Park to the south of downtown. It just feels like this neighborhood is bordered by a lot of major streets that are going north-south that kind of make up the boundaries of this area, and people cutting through neighborhoods or using it to get to work or other parts of Salem. So you just have a bit more cars, a bit more traffic. It's more dense, but again, it comes at a lower price point. So there is some give and take when considering these areas in Grant and Highland area of central Salem. We're going to talk about our last region here, and that is North and Northeast Salem. Now, this is going to be pretty much from Interstate 5 going east. I know you can be a handful of blocks west of Interstate 5 and it'll still be considered North or East Salem, but that's the general area that we're going to be talking about here. This is more of a kind of a suburban feel here. A lot of mid-century homes being built here, or homes being built in the 80s and 90s. You're not going to find historic homes, but as far as price point goes, it's kind of a happy medium. It's a good place for entry-level homes or entry-level buyers if you're looking to get into Salem and purchasing a home. It's also very convenient to a lot of amenities. You have Lancaster Road that goes right through the heart of this portion of Salem. It's a north-south street, and this is where you're going to find a lot of your shopping, your amenities, again, your casual dining, as well as professional services and more. Lancaster is going to be a main hub that you're going to find yourself going to when living in this area. It's also where the Willamette Town Center is, which is the big box shopping center, outdoor shopping center that we have here in Salem. It's also the one and only Target that we have here in Salem. You have to go to Kaiser, which is just to the north of Salem. It's still close. Kaiser has a Target. It's newer, part of the Kaiser station. But if you're strictly talking about Salem, this is where our Target is located as well. As I mentioned, a lot of mid-century homes being built here, but also a lot of new construction homes. There's a big, massive project. I can't get that out. East Village Park in this portion of Salem, which is all new construction homes just built in the last couple of years. There's still some homes available there, but that's a big, newer pocket of this area. Another advantage of this area is that if you're someone that commutes a lot using Interstate 5 freeway, whether you're going north into Portland or south towards Eugene or anywhere in between, this has really easy access because it's super close and convenient to get to Interstate 5 freeway. Also, another benefit that people don't necessarily think about, but we take full advantage of it even living on the opposite side of Salem, is the farmland that you have adjacent. You have Cordon Road, which is the farthest east road you're going to have in the city of Salem. Then it gets into basically your farmland, and you're really close to a lot of the you-pick farms that we like to take advantage of, where these farms open up, you go in and pick your own fruit, your own vegetables. It's an awesome experience. Some of the best tasting fruit when you pick it fresh off the bush or the vine. It's pretty amazing. You've got Easy Orchards farm there. You've got Fordyce, Stuart Olson, and more. And they open up basically spring through fall. You also have some great fall festivals and activities here at those local farms as well. So this neighborhood, you're about 5, maybe 10 minutes away from that really agritainment that I like to call. So you can see that there are 4 very different regions of Salem, and if you don't do your due diligence, if you're not planning right, you may end up buying a home in the wrong area. And by wrong, I don't mean bad. I mean a neighborhood that's not going to fit your lifestyle for your day-to-day living, some of your entertainment, and whatever it is that you like and feel about a neighborhood. So make sure you are planning the neighborhood before purchasing the home. Once you get the neighborhood set based on whatever it is that you're looking for, then that's where you start searching for the home. Now I'm making this video as someone who has relocated to Salem, Oregon. I moved here about 4 or 5 years ago. I'm not born and raised here, but I come from the same perspective that you possibly coming from, someone that's doing the research, trying to figure out if Salem is the right place, and finding out that which neighborhood is going to be the best fit, and then going to find out which home is the best fit. I'm not only coming to you as someone who has done this myself, but as a local real estate agent who I've helped many families move and relocate to the city of Salem, because I can honestly understand that perspective. I know what it's like to relocate, move your life, move your family if you have one, figuring out a new city. So if you are thinking about making that move and buying a home, hit me up at the contact information popping up or in the description below. I'd love to have that conversation with you and help you like I've helped many of my other clients. We're going to now talk about the cost, planning for the cost, being prepared for the cost when moving and relocating to Salem and buying a home. I'm also really looking forward to a little bit later in this video where I talk about one of my favorite planning issues that a lot of people don't do when they come here doing their research looking to move to Salem. It's something that you may have not thought about, but it makes a big difference when buying your home here. So let's jump into the costs. These costs are going to be Salem specific and some general, and they could apply to other cities, but specifically we're going to talk about issues here that we have here in Salem. One of the big questions I get here about the costs of buying a home when relocating to Salem are the property taxes. And it's not exactly straightforward here in Salem because a lot of places it's based on a percentage of the purchase price when you buy a home. And that's just not how it works here in Salem. And it's very property specific. And it's something that I learned here when making the move. It's something that I guide my clients on when they're looking at homes. Because when you're factoring in your monthly payments, you really want to get it down to the exact numbers as best as possible so you're not caught off guard with any surprises. We're going to talk about property taxes and Measure 50 that was passed in 1997 that basically said property taxes here are based on assessed value, not necessarily the market value and what that home sells for. So you can't just be general. You've got to look at each specific property. You're going to ask your real estate agent or your loan officer, whoever's helping you with that portion of it, to look up the specific details of the property to find out what those property taxes are. Now, what Measure 50 did was it did put a cap on how much property taxes can be raised every year, and that's at 3%. Now, you can expect your taxes to go up every year, but at the most they're going to go up is 3%, so you can at least plan for that moving forward. And you're not caught by surprise 5 years later when your property taxes are continuously to go up. You can financially be planned for that. The interesting thing about the way the property taxes here work is you can have a house just a block away, very similar, same size, same condition, and they can have very different property taxes. So when you are narrowing down and choosing your homes, you can't just think because you saw one home at one property tax value that next home that you saw that is very similar will be the same thing. You've really got to look up each property on an individual basis to see what that is. Another thing to be aware about is that Salem falls into two different counties. You have Marion County, which makes up most of Salem, and that is everything going to be east of the Willamette River. Then you have Polk County, which West Salem falls into. It's the only portion of Salem that falls into Polk County. In general, Polk County is going to have a slightly lower tax rate than Marion County. Also, to be aware of, when you're looking to buy a home in Salem, you want to figure out whether you are going to be in the city limits or just outside into the county limits. Now, this applies to properties that are right on the edge of the city because you want to find out whether it's going to be in the city because then you're going to have higher property taxes. If you are out of the city and in the county, your taxes are going to be lower. Another thing to note about property taxes is, and this is where people can get really caught by surprise, is when you're looking at homes, you want to make sure, if it's not completely obvious, whether there's been some recent updates, complete remodels of kitchens and bathrooms and more, if there's been any recent additions that have been permitted, that have been filed with the city, the county, which you hope they were, because these could add to your assessed value for the house. And if they haven't been applied yet to the current property taxes that are showing up on public record, they are certainly going to come up in the next year's bill. and you don't want to be caught by surprise. So you want to ask the seller or do the due diligence to find out if any of these items have been done after the current assessed tax year, because it could happen during escrow where you get caught off guard that there is actually a property tax shortage and you don't want to be caught with paying that. Or at the very least, if you are going to be paying for that, then you want to certainly be aware and budget for that. The worst case is that everything closes, you buy your new home, and then you get a property tax bill or a letter saying, hey, your property taxes are going up because of this remodel or extra square footage that was added because it has been reassessed, and now you're stuck with a much higher bill that you were definitely not prepared for. So again, this all comes part of that research, being knowledgeable of how the property taxes work here in Salem. The next cost I want to address here in Salem are about older homes, because a lot of people come here, they want that Pacific Northwest vibe. They look at the older homes that I mentioned in the central portion of Salem, these bungalows and craftsman and Victorian homes. They are amazing. They're magnificent the way they're built. Really cool homes. However, they're 100 years old or older, and they can come with some real issues if you're not really doing your due diligence during your home inspections and just not asking the right questions to the sellers when buying a home. And where this really becomes a surprise factor as far as cost goes is in the insurance portion. When you're looking to buy a home, you want to make sure you're dealing with getting homeowners insurance up front and right away, talking to your agent, giving them the property, and answering their questionnaire, because they're going to ask very specific questions, especially about these older homes. They're going to want to know if the electrical has been updated from the old knob and tube. They're going to know about the heating system, because some of these homes didn't necessarily come with it. And if they are coming with it now, then maybe they're ancient. So when buying these older historic homes, you want to make sure you are planning and being prepared for these extra costs that come with the older homes. You don't want to be caught by just looking at the shiny object. That may add to your budget, not just in the purchase price, but in general maintenance or repairs that could come down the road with some of these homes. And also, these insurance binders could be a lot more expensive when buying these older homes. Now, it's not just the older homes you have to be aware of, it's the middle-aged homes, the homes that have their systems that are nearing the end of their life, even though the home was built maybe just, 15 years ago, 20 years ago. You're seeing these homes as somewhat newer. However, the roof is almost done. The water heater, the HVAC system, they're all nearing the end of their life, and you could be going through inspections thinking that they're in working order. The inspector says they're in working order. However, they could fail at any moment, which means you take on that cost as the new homeowner. And when it comes to insurance, certain things you want to look for, again, besides the age of some of these systems, are trees on the property, because they're coming down harder and harder on people that have these massive trees that are overhanging any type of structure of the home, whether it's the house, the garage, maybe a neighbor's home. They're doing these aerial researches through Google. They're doing drive-bys. And sometimes they'll just decline your insurance during escrow, saying they're not going to offer it unless you make some of these fixes. Or worse, you buy the home, and then a month later you get a notice in the mail saying, hey, if you don't fix these issues, we're going to cancel your policy. Or they just jack up the price. So these are things you want to plan for, making sure you're doing your research and figuring out this information before, not maybe even before making the offer, certainly during the escrow process. Another cost that people need to be aware of when people moving to Salem are the acreage properties. Again, a lot of people are moving here from larger cities or from places that have just smaller homes, and they want the land. Because Salem has a lot of homes that have acreage, it's very appealing. And I can definitely understand, we were figuring out whether that was going to be the right move for us. We decided not to buy one of those. Maybe that'll be our next home. But people love their land here. However, there's a couple things you have to consider when buying these types of properties, and that's figuring out if that home is connected to the public sewer system and the public water system. A lot of these homes aren't. They are on a well system and a septic system, and these can be very costly if they're not maintained properly. And if you have to replace one of these systems, the pricing can be outlandish and almost unaffordable. So making sure you are factoring in that type of cost, understanding that you want that lifestyle, but it could come at a cost. So it's very important you're doing your special inspections on the septic system, on the well system, because you definitely don't want to be caught off guard with that. And if you do run into that during the escrow process, you absolutely want to find out and work it out either with the seller, or if you're willing to take on the cost yourself, figuring out how much that's going to cost. And even if it's possible, some of these properties, there may not even be room, depending on how the property is situated, to put these new tanks in. If that's the case, you've got a much bigger problem. Another Salem related cost that you're going to want to be aware of is living in a flood zone. Again, this goes back to getting your insurance policy. There's a number of areas in Salem that have creeks running through them, and every once in a while these creeks will flood. It doesn't happen often, but they can happen, and they are on the FEMA flood list. And if that's the case, if the home is in a flood zone, if you are getting a loan, they're absolutely going to require you to get flood insurance. And even if you don't get a loan, you may want to get flood insurance to cover you, because your regular homeowner's insurance policy may not cover it. It's something you're going to want to figure out with your insurance policy provider. The flood insurance policies can add hundreds to thousands of dollars to your annual policy amount. And it's also something you just want to be aware of, whether you want to take that on or not, or take that risk. There's some really cool properties with the creeks running right behind it or along it, and it's really neat to have that part of your property. However, it can come at a price, not just your insurance, but if it does flood, there's just the idea of your home being flooded, and if that's something you want to deal with going through remodeling, constructing, the type of destruction the flood can do. And again, this doesn't happen often. I'm not trying to scare you away necessarily from those types of areas and neighborhoods. It's just something you want to be aware about. Even talk to neighbors. I help clients when they're looking at homes in this area, asking them about their experience with the river, with the creeks rising, if they've been through any of the floods that have happened here in Salem. So again, just a cost you want to be aware of. Now we're going to be in that portion of the video where we're going to be talking about one of my favorite parts of the planning portion of relocating, buying a home here in Salem. And that is making sure you visit Salem the right way. And I think there is a right way and an incorrect way when you are looking to move here, relocate here. Now, some of my clients don't have the luxury of actually physically coming out here and looking at neighborhoods and homes. I help them with filming, taking videos of the homes for them, videos of the neighborhoods. But for those that can come out here physically and visit Salem before relocating and buying a home, you should be looking at it from someone that is looking to live here, not as a tourist. You want to visit Salem in a way that is like your day-to-day lifestyle. How long is your commute going to be, depending on the neighborhood you're choosing from, to and from work? How long is your commute going to be to the amenities, your shopping, your restaurants that you want to go to? Figure out which roads you're going to take, depending on the neighborhood that you're living in, and explore it that way. Yes, you can have fun here. I'm not saying don't have fun when visiting Salem and checking things out, because that's part of moving to a new city, is making sure that you're going to enjoy the entertainment here and everything that Salem has to offer. However, I know a lot of people come here and they start exploring all the touristy places that Salem has to offer, or they just strictly focus on going to the parks because we have some great park systems here, doing some hiking trails. They're going, because Salem is so central, they're checking out the coast, they're going into the mountains, they're driving into Portland, they're going to Eugene. And that is a big draw for why people move to Salem, because of how central it is. We love how central it is. We take full advantage of that. However, that's not going to be your daily routine. So you want to make sure when you're in Salem that you are treating it as if you were going to be living here. Take some major roads, take Commercial Street, drive on Liberty, take Lancaster, go on Kubler when you're in South Salem. Take a drive across the bridge, and make sure you're doing this in different times of the day so you can get a feel of what it's like driving through Salem in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening. I highly recommend also, when you've determined which neighborhood that is going to be for you, drive that, explore it, take a walk around the neighborhood as if you were going to be doing that when living there. Go into downtown, park. You're going to realize that you're going to have to pay for parking unless you go to one of the two free structures, but we have paid parking into downtown Salem. See if downtown Salem is a place that you're going to be frequenting often, maybe not at all. Just get a feel for that. Check out the Saturday market. That actually is something that people make that as part of their daily routine between spring and fall. You can definitely check out the parks like Riverfront Park, Mento Brown Park, because those are things that you're going to make part of your daily lifestyle most likely. But again, don't spend all day there or multiple days there. Make that as just part of kind of what you think your daily lifestyle would be. Also, if you have an idea of neighborhood, again, check out where the schools are, see what the drop off is like during the morning and the afternoon, just to get a feel for that. Go into some of the local markets. That may sound weird, but go inside, your Costco, go inside the Target, go inside the Roth's Market or the Safeway or some of the natural groceries that we have here. Go check them out, explore to see what that's like. Again, that may sound silly, but you have to, when you come to Salem, you are uprooting your life, making a big purchase for your house. You're going to want to know what your day-to-day life is going to be like. If you're someone that takes Interstate 5 freeway, see what that commute's going to be like to get to the freeway, and when you come home, what that's going to be like. You can even just drive on Interstate 5 freeway to see what the traffic is like as well. The bottom line is, when you're visiting Salem for the purpose of relocating, I understand the tendencies of finding all the fun things to do, exploring all the nature that we have here, and taking advantage of how central we are. However, it is very important that you figure out your daily routine, visit like how you would live your normal life in the new city that you're going to be moving to, because that makes all the difference. And you're not going to be caught off guard after the fact, after you make your home purchase in the neighborhood. And hopefully you discover that you made the right choice and you don't have regrets because you visited and toured Salem like you were supposed to. We're going to talk about the buying timeline. There is a lot of seasonality when it comes to buying a home in Salem, and so you want to plan for that and be prepared for that. If you're coming here during the spring and summer, that's going to be when you're going to find the most inventory, the most houses available for sale. It's also the most competitive time of the year when buying a home because it's when most people are moving to Salem. The cool thing about spring and summer is that you're going to be experiencing some of the best weather that we have here in Salem. It's actually some fantastic weather when comparing to the country as a whole. It's beautiful here. It's very comfortable, so you'll be able to experience Salem, and probably it's one of the most awesome times to come and explore Salem. When the summer cools off and we're heading into the fall season, there are still some really good opportunities here. We still have some homes that were left from the end of summer that will be available in the fall. The weather is just starting to turn, so you'll still have some nice days. It's beautiful here in Salem, so you'll get to see the beautiful fall colors here. It's very crisp. The air is very comfortable here. So you'll be able to explore Salem with that. You won't have as many opportunities as you will in spring and summer. However, there will be some overflow going into the fall season. Now, if you really want the better deals or be a real strategic buyer when it comes to pricing, then you'll be coming here during the winter where there's going to be less inventory, but there's a lot less demand, a lot less people looking for homes. So you could actually get a pretty good deal during the winter. Now, I should have probably put this portion of what I'm about to say when we were talking about exploring Salem as someone that's going to be living here, not as a tourist. I highly recommend coming to Salem in the winter, fall, winter, just to see what the weather is like, because we have a lot of gray skies here and a lot of rain for about 6 months of the year, and it can be very overwhelming for people that aren't used to that. So I highly recommend coming here, at least exploring, touring Salem, figuring out what your lifestyle is going to be like during that time of the year. But also for buyers, if you're looking for more of a strategy as far as getting the better price, this could be your opportunity. Again, there's just going to be a lot less inventory to choose from, but better pricing. So when you're planning to come out here and relocating, looking for homes, you can kind of base your strategy on the time of the season. Now, I will say when homes are priced really well, people are surprised on how fast they will sell. However, there is a tendency for home sellers in Salem to price their homes a little too high, and they'll sit on the market for a couple of months. The average days on market as this video is filming is about 2.5 months or so. But when they're priced well, they will move really quickly. As promised at the beginning of the video, I'm going to go over what most buyers end up regretting when relocating and buying a home here. And most of it has to do with just the improper planning before making the move here. And that is, a lot of people end up choosing the wrong neighborhood. And again, I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean it's just not suitable to their lifestyle and their daily life. And that's a big deal. If you find out you're living in a great home in a neighborhood that just doesn't suit your needs, you're never going to feel comfortable. It's never going to feel right. A lot of those people end up moving because they feel like Salem isn't right for them, when in fact it was just the wrong neighborhood for their lifestyle. The next thing that I hear a lot and see a lot is people choosing neighborhoods and not realizing their commute times. Now, Salem isn't made up of a massive amount of people. We have about 170,000 people that make up Salem. Congestion is not terrible, especially if you're moving from a large city. It'll feel like it's nothing. Traffic here doesn't feel like it's a big deal. However, I do see it getting worse. In just the 4 or 5 years that I've been here, there is more residential homes being built, more multifamily homes being built, more people coming into Salem. So the congestion and the traffic is getting worse as time goes on. And so it's something you want to factor in, how long your commute is going to be, going to work, going to where your kids' school is, going to your favorite shopping areas, your favorite restaurants, things like that. What your daily routine is, you want to see what that commute is going to be like. Also, pro tip, you want to ask your real estate agent of any upcoming projects that they're aware of. Do your own due diligence, see if there's any massive projects being built, because the commute may be one thing when you buy the home, may be very different a couple years later. I know when I moved here, I made myself aware of various housing projects that were being built, hundreds of new homes, some new apartment buildings, and I knew that was going to add to the level of cars on the street and overall congestion. Again, you have that in South Salem, portions of East Salem, so you want to make sure you are aware of that, because it is going to be adding to the congestion. Another regret that home buyers have here is just not being aware of how property taxes and insurance work here. And of course, you can say this applies to any city, but we did talk about some Salem specific things that happen here regarding taxes and insurance. So it's just being prepared. A lot of these surprises can come up during escrow, but they can come up very shortly afterwards if you didn't do the right planning. And the biggest regret is just really not having a good grasp of the city itself. And that's maybe because when you came here to visit Salem, you explored it more like a tourist and less like someone that was actually going to be living here. So just not having a really good understanding of how the city flows, how the city functions, how each neighborhood works, and that's where people have some of the biggest regrets. So it all comes down to planning and making sure that you're doing your research, checking out these videos and videos like it on my channel to get the lifestyle. My main reason for doing these videos is because when I relocated to Salem, there just wasn't a lot of information, especially on YouTube. And I like doing these videos showing you the lifestyle, giving you guidance on making that move and relocating here or buying a home, because it makes the transition so much more smooth when you are better prepared. If you were thinking about making the move to Salem, I get what you're going through, because I did that relocation. Hit me up at the contact information, pop me up, or in the description below. I would love to help you like I've helped many other clients buy their home and relocate here to Salem, Oregon.